Jai. Ganga Mai ki Jai, Jamuna Mai ki Jai, Bhakti Devi ki Jai, Srimati Tulasi Maharani ki Jai, Yugadharma Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Gaura Premanande, Hari 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 Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Jai Prabhu, so it's a pleasure to be back with you. It's been a while, like several weeks. I'm starting to get rusty and feel the extra effects of the mode of passion and ignorance, but now I feel like I'm in a protected zone again, thanks to you. So the exam went okay? You're okay with it?
Yeah, it was okay, but lengthy, quite a length. Long, many questions were there.
Yeah, there were too many questions for me.
So I think exam got extended till up to I think more than 3 hours.
Really?
It was more than 3 hours.
Wow. There's too many questions. I think we have to reduce. Maybe we should do 3 chapters at a time.
That's a good suggestion. Yeah, maybe that's a good idea. Yeah, actually, why not? Why not? It would just be, an extra 2 exams, but maybe it's just less stressful.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to our Bhagavad Gita 7th chapter, and we'll read 1 through 19, just the verses, and then we'll go back, read the purports, like we usually do. Interesting to note, I don't know if you know, Vignesh, that when you look at Prabhupada's lectures, the recorded lectures, do you think he gave many lectures on 7.1 or not many?
7.1.
7.1, which is the first verse we're going to look at. I don't know, you have 50%.
I think you should refer quite a lot on that first phrase.
Yeah, he spoke on this verse a surprising amount of times. Like there's so many lectures. When you look at the archives, hardbound, collection of Prabhupada's lectures, which is like it goes according to the verses of the Gita. 7.1 is like he spoke on the 7.1 so many times. Very interesting. I personally love this verse. Like you said, he quotes the Maya Sakta, Maya Asakta, like you have to become attached, you have to become attached to Krishna.
I can count how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. 30 times.
30, he gave 30 lectures on 7.1. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And that
last... Plus some Hindi lectures too.
Huh?
Plus some Hindi lectures too. I think it may not be there. A lot of Hindi lectures that he used to give. Hindi lectures.
On 7.1. Yeah, he's telling on 7.1. He's telling all the Indians, like, shut the hell up and listen to me, listen to Krishna, stop speculating, because that last word, Tat Shrinu, like here.
I got 30 times, a lot of lectures of Bhagavad Gita.
He's waking up the Western hippies, like, hello, wake up, hear me, wake up, and he's telling the Indians, like, shut up, stop speculating, and here, in either case, you gotta hear Krishna's message. Yeah, that theme comes up again and again, like in that Gyane Prayasamudapastinamanta Eva Jivanti Sanmukaritam Bhavadiya Vartastane Sitaha Shruti Gatam Dhanuvam. That famous verse that I always love to quote regarding dress code. How, you should, like Brahma recommends, you should practice Krishna consciousness according to your established social situation, but just, stop speculating and listen attentively or submissively. So there's that, here it's Tat Shrinu, and that verse is, Shruti, Gatam, and there's, there's just so many verses about hearing. Okay, so I'll start, then Vignesh, then Golokananda Priya. Now hear, O son of Prita, Arjuna, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt.
Text number 2. I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know.
You're reading from the post-1972 version, aren't you?
I'm praying from Vedabase
Yeah,
online.
I guess. But I think even
How
Vedabase has
many?
the pre-72. Sorry, but because it's interesting, Prabhupada says here in the 72 version, he says Numa null. Anyway, I'll shut up. But it'd be nice maybe if you can, it would be nice at least for my part of the course if you Prabhus can get on the
Yeah,
1972 version. So at least we're reading from the same book, you know.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And by the way, and I'll
Yeah.
just close the parenthesis. Golokananda Priya, I especially recommend you to hear him because you knew him personally. You know him personally. Garuda Prabhu, remember him, of course?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he, I don't know if you know, but the last several years, he's really gotten involved in this, changing Prabhupada's books issue. Like he was completely silent
Yeah.
on
I
it
heard
for
that.
decades. But he's very, very vocal. And, the gentleman, PhD from Harvard University that he is, and extra sort of gentleman manners that he has, he restrains his language very nicely. But he started a series about a month ago where he interviews another Prabhupada disciple called Gupta Das, who's an American Caucasian. Not, I mean, I never heard of him. Who's a trained lawyer in copyrights law, if you can imagine. And so they have like it's going to be a several week, like at least 7, 10, 15 session series on discussing, the changes of Prabhupada's books. And so they started 3 weeks ago. They already put out 3 episodes, and I really recommend you listening to, and also you, Vignesh. I really Garuda Prabhu is a not so famous Prabhupada disciple within ISKCON because he's a little bit more sort of independent, parallel, but very much respected by those who know him. He's written a wonderful Bhagavad Gita that is quite sold a lot in America, as well as a
yeah,
fantastic book on the Rasa Lila. And anyway, so I really recommend if you're interested, ask me. I'll find the. Otherwise, he's on the Facebook call. It's called BBT Book Change, and he put that third episode recently. Why do I mention him? Because because it'd be nice that we all read the 72 version. I'm sorry, no more
Yeah.
no more.
Yeah. I heard a couple of the
Oh, you
talk
already
again on
heard.
the changing book.
Oh, but
I
not
heard
not the
not all, but
series with Gupta.
yeah. I think he was talking to somebody. He has some talk with somebody, some
With some
interview with
sannyasi, right,
somebody.
with a beard, who passed away actually recently,
Yeah.
Nishinga Swami.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Out of many classes among men, one man endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, only one knows me in truth.
excuse me, I'm scrolling down here. There's so many paintings. Text 4, and that's 3. Text 4: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these 8 comprise my separated material energies.
Besides this inferior nature, O mighty Arjuna, there is a superior energy of mind, which are all living entities who are struggling with material nature and are sustaining the universe.
Oh, did you switch back? Did you switch to 1972 now?
Yeah, upon another website of I think some prabhupadgita.com.
Okay,
So it
because
is a original edition.
cool.
But that becomes quite convenient for me to use a website rather than a PDF because it becomes difficult to move on.
Well, yeah. Tough luck, buddy. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead. Go look in the Priya. Tough luck, Vignesh.
Yeah, I have this app on. I have both 72 and the other one,
Just see.
so I
Just
can.
see. You spoiled. You spoiled, Br- Brahmin.
Yeah. Mhm.
Go ahead.
User, your turn.
Oh, it's my turn?
Oh, is that me? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. All is material and all that is spiritual in this world. Know for certain that I am both its origin and dissolution.
O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. I don't. Did I ever tell you I went to Poland like 6 or 7 years with Indradyumna Swami's Polish tour? Yeah.
Sure. I think you told once some incident
Did you know I was
story
on the
related to
tour,
that.
Golokandanam Priya?
Yeah.
So,
I heard you talk.
and I took the service of replacing Sri Prahlad as the lead singer of Village of Peace. So I had to learn all the songs that they had composed, and one of them was about this verse. It went, "There is no truth beyond him." Na 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 na. Forget the lyrics. Everything rests upon him, like as pearls are strung on a thread, something like that. So anyway, I always think of that song whenever we get to that verse. You read that, right?
Easy for you to remember.
Or was that me who read that?
Yeah.
No, it's your turn.
It's my turn.
You
So text number
you're supposed
8.
to read
Oh,
7.
I'm supposed to read 7? Oh, I read the first
Yeah.
line. Yeah. Sorry. O conqueror of wealth, Arjuna, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread.
O son of Kunti, Arjuna, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and ability in man.
Who knows how Prabhupada extended the mercy of this verse? There's a couple of lectures in 1967 or something like that, where Prabhupada says, even if you're a drunkard and you love wine, when you drink your wine, if you think this wine is the taste of Krishna, you're Krishna conscious. How merciful Prabhupada is, right? Extending it from water to wine. Like even if you drink wine and you think this is Krishna, that's Krishna consciousness. I find that amazing.
I am the origin fragrance of the earth, and I am the heat in fire. I am the life of all that lives, and I am the penances of all ascetics.
O son of Pritha, know that I am the original seed of all existences, the intelligence of the intelligent, and the prowess of all powerful men.
I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life which is not contrary to religious principles. O Lord of the Bharatas.
All state of being, be they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of this material nature.
Deluded by the three modes, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. Now this is like ultra famous here. Now this verse. Definitely will be part of the exam. No, I mean, like you have to know these verses. This verse. Go ahead.
This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it.
Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me.
Okay. I confused this verse with another verse. You just read number 15, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those miscreants, the 4 kinds of. Okay, number 16. It's a long purport. Hold on, let me scroll down here. Number 16. O best among the Bharatas, Arjuna, 4 kinds of pious men render devotional service unto me. The distressed, the desirer of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the Absolute.
Of this, the wise one who is in full knowledge in union with me to pure devotional service is the best. For I am very dear to him and he is dear to me.
All these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls, but he who is situated in knowledge of me, I consider verily to dwell in me, being engaged in my transcendental service, he attains me.
And finally for today, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabhaha, also super famous. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Jai. Okay, let's go back to 7.1. And let's read the whole purport. We can read I'll read the verse and then we can and I'll read the verse first paragraph, and then Vignesh and then Kolokananda. You can read the subsequent paragraphs. So, verse 1, Maya saktamana parta yogam yunjanmadashraya samshayam samagramam yata gyasasi tachrinu. Now hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. Purport. In this 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the nature of Krishna consciousness is fully described. So here we're getting into the 6th, right? What are we getting into now?
7, devotional service, 7 to...
The 6 middle chapters, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of...
Bhakti Yoga.
7 start with devotional service,
Yeah. I heard the analogy of like a sandwich. You get the best part is in the middle. So like the middle 6 chapters are, because they deal, like you said, with bhakti. In this 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the nature of Krishna consciousness is fully described. Krishna is full in all opulences, and how he manifests such opulences is described herein. I'm just raising my volume a little bit. Also, 4 kinds of... Oops, I'm peeking. As you notice, I'm traveling around now with this mic. I'm really happy. I do these podcasts almost every day, and now I'm going to be doing an audiobook in French. Le Livre de Krishna. Kolokananda Priya. You'll be the first one I can send it to. The Krishna book in French. Anyway, I apologize. Huh? What?
For children in French.
What?
Something for children in French.
Something for children.
In French, yeah.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
You're doing currently first audio translation of Vishnu?
That's what I'd like to do. Now that I have my mic, and in a few days, I'm going to move to Javi Prabhu's apartment, and he has this great desk. And so I'll have my own, real nice working space. And I think I want to spend a half hour per day, slowly recording the French Krishna book. It's a wonderful translation. And I'm, as you know, I'm like really picky about, editions and translations. And whereas the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and teachings of Lord Chaitanya and Nectar of and oh God, it's a disaster in my humble opinion. Somehow the Krishna book was just a complete masterpiece in translation. It's just...
Who translated it?
I don't know. It's a different devotee than who translated teachings of Lord Chaitanya Charitamrita, but it's really well done. And the French Yatra needs audiobooks. Like we have nothing in audiobooks, so I feel inspired to do the Krishna book. Anyway, so sorry Prabhupada. Also, 4 kinds of fortunate people who become attached to Krishna, and 4 kinds of unfortunate people who never take to Krishna are described in this chapter. Now, are there such unfortunate people who literally never, because never means like never, ever, 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 ever. Are there such souls? Or does every soul eventually, sooner or later, come to Krishna? What would you, Prabhu, say?
I'll say Prabhupada, what I heard it is even everybody who comes to Krishna through death, even they never accepted Krishna.
Okay,
For
but
the form.
like seeing Krishna as like, not through death, but actually actually Krishna, like, who become attached to Krishna, or who, not through death, but as the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that
theoretically,
everyone has the ability. I think
yeah,
everyone has the
theoretically,
ability to be Krishna conscious, because it's just like
but then
it
we
is
all have
there
free will, right?
already.
But we all have free will, so technically,
We all have free will, so we cannot say whether we will or we will not, but we
right,
have that ability to attain that position.
right. So in some way, there are unfortunate people, at least who never take. But Krishna becomes very merciful and really puts in so much effort to try to get us to return to Him, especially in this age with Lord
Chaitanya.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Jai. Your turn, Vignesh. Next
Like
chapter.
they had to repeatedly forever. They had to take birth again, birth and death, and birth. Goes to the cycle of birth and death. These people,
Yeah. Those who don't.
eternal.
Well, theoretically, until they dislike it, the onus is on them, right? The onus is on the soul. So until the soul says, you know what, I'm throwing the white flag, I've had enough of suffering, I'm willing to believe, that I'm in a coma and then there's a personal God, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, until that moment comes, and that moment comes by the actual choice of the individual soul, then theoretically, like Vignesh pointed to, theoretically, even though the potential to become Krishna conscious is always there, theoretically, by the same exact token, some souls can theoretically poireauter. You know how they say in French, poireauter? They can like basically rot. They can poireauter in the material world ad infinitum, as we say in Latin, like until eternity or for eternity, right? Until someone likes you gives them some piece of prasadam or says Hare Krishna. Golokananda Priya is moved right now by a moment, by a deep emotion of Vaishnav compassion, as you can see on her face, Vignesh.
Okay.
Vaishnavas are naturally compassionate.
So go ahead.
Um,
In the first 6 chapters,
in the first six chapters of Bhagavad Gita, the living entity has been described as non-material spirit, soul, capable of elevating himself to self-realization by different types of yogas. At the end of sixth chapter, it has been clearly stated that the steady concentration of the mind upon Krishna, or in other words, Krishna consciousness, is the highest form
what's
of
the
all yoga.
verse?
6.47.
Anyone, do you know it by heart?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Both of you, go ahead.
Should I? Yeah. Yoginam api sarvesha mat katena antaratmana shadhavan bhajate yo mam sama yuktatamo matah.
Are you reading it or you know it by heart?
I know it by heart.
Wow, very good. And you also, huh?
This was one of the part of the exam.
This is part of the thing, verse memorization.
Very good. Okay,
Yeah.
continue, please.
Yeah. By concentrating one's mind upon Krishna, one is able to know the absolute truth completely, but not otherwise. Impersonal Brahmajyoti or localized Paramatma realization is not perfect knowledge of the absolute truth because it is partial. Full and scientific knowledge is Krishna, and everything is revealed to the person in Krishna consciousness. In complete Krishna consciousness, one knows that Krishna is ultimate knowledge beyond any doubts. Different types of yoga are only stepping stones on the path of Krishna consciousness. One who takes directly to Krishna consciousness automatically knows about Brahmajyoti and Paramatma in full. The practice of Krishna consciousness, yoga, one can know everything in full, namely the absolute truth, the living entities, the material nature, and the manifestations with paraphernalia.
One should therefore begin yoga practice I directed in the last verse of the sixth chapter. Concentration of the mind upon Krishna, the Supreme, is made possible by prescribed devotional service in 9 different forms, of which Shravanam is the first
Boom.
and most
That's a huge statement, isn't it?
important.
Shravanam is the most important. So yeah, chanting is the Yuga Dharma, no question. Chanting, kirtan, whether japa or sankirtan, is the most important activity. However, if you don't do your Shravanam, your kirtanam's going to dry up. You won't do kirtan very long if you're not doing proper Shravanam, isn't it?
The Lord therefore says to Arjuna, Tat Shrinu, or hear from me. No one can be greater authority than Krishna, and therefore by hearing from him one receives the greatest opportunity for progress in Krishna consciousness. One has therefore to learn from Krishna directly or from a pure devotee of Krishna, not from a non-devotee upstart, puffed up with academic education.
I'll give you an example. I had a professor, I won't mention her name. A nice lady. She was friends actually. She went to college with Garuda Prabhu and also Tamal Krishna Maharaj. I think she's still teaching. Maybe she retired, but she taught at least at the University of California in Santa Barbara. And her whole thesis was on Gaudiya Vaishnavism, right? And I'll always remember I was undergraduate, but I got to go for 1 or 2 days to a graduate seminar she was giving to about maybe 10 or 12 graduate students. And the topic was, the teachings of Rupa Goswami. Okay. He was like, whoa. And so it's a 3-hour seminar. So we're sitting there. And I kid you not, she was speaking such sophisticated, nuances, details of Rupa Goswami and Nectar of the, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And she moved me to tears. I was like, oh my God, she knows more about Rupa Goswami than 99% of ISKCON devotees, And then there was a break after an hour and a half. So I had to so I went to the bathroom, and then when I walked out of the bathroom, she and about 6 or 7 students were outside the building on the staircase level, and she was smoking her cigarette. And I was like, huh? You know? And then it's like Ravindra Swarup Prabhu. He says, because he himself has a PhD from Temple University, and I think he analyzes very well. He says, for these scholars, including the scholars, who teach about, intricate topics of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, ultimately it's their job. It's their job. Just like someone, pumps petrol, someone else is an architect, someone else is a hairdresser. So when you have a break in your job, you just go and get your beer or you smoke your cigarette. It's just a job, it's not devotional service. It's a job for which they get paid and with which they pay their bills, But I'll always remember, she moved me to tears at one moment, and then she's just like talking about mundane topics with a cigarette in her hand, like open, and I was like, oh, wow, So not to say that you can't have a combination of devotional, devotee scholars. And as a matter of fact, we saw how very soon after Prabhupada passed away, there was and there continues to be a growing sort of army, so to speak, of devotee scholars infiltrating the academy. Starting with Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Hridayananda Maharaj, Garuda Prabhu, what's his name? Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, Abhishek Ghosh,
Gupta, I think Ravi Gupta and all.
yeah,
They're
Ravi
also there.
Gupta, there's so many, Janaki Ram, and as a matter of fact, I remember I had a professor at University of California, Riverside, Professor Amanda Lucia, and she told me, she said, don't think that we're not aware in the National Religious Studies department, departments, like there's this American Academy of Religion. So all the religious studies professors from all over America, they basically all know each other. So there's really not that many religious studies departments, So they all know each other. And she told me with a smile one day, she's like, don't think that, you guys are trying to like, hide your identities, but we know a little bit. We know about the little Krishna mafia. She used the word mafia. That little mafia of devotee scholars in the getting into the academy right now. We know about it. Yeah, so the point is you can be a devotee scholar, but if you just have puffed up academic education and you're not a devotee, then no one should we shouldn't listen to them. Whose turn is it? Mine or Golokananda Priya?
Yours.
In the Srimad Bhagavatam. So now Prabhupada is coming to which very important chapter of the first canto?
The 2.
Yes, chapter 2. And these verses here that Prabhupada's quoting here are extremely, extremely important. I'll always remember I was on traveling Sankirtan with Kostuba Prabhu and Dana Kelly from Dallas and Tara Prabhu, and at whose apartment I'm staying here, by the way. He's in Poland because his wife doesn't want to live in Mayapur anymore. Anyway, so it's better education for her boy there, they believe. So sorry for having said that. The point is they're not in Mayapur anymore, so he's kindly letting me stay here for some time. Having said that, we were on traveling Sankirtan. We were in the big ISKCON Chicago temple, which is a pretty huge temple room, and we must have been about 40 brahmacharis, and we were following a rock band. I think it was Red Hot Chili Peppers, or maybe it was the beginning of the what's it called, some tour. I forget. With all these bands traveling together, and I always remember there was Chandramouli Maharaj. You know Chandramouli Maharaj?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do too, Vignesh?
I heard of his name.
Not
much details.
Yeah, he's very nice, very humble. And so I remember I remember he told me, he said these verses are extremely important. So yeah, they are. These verses really encapsulate the whole process of Krishna consciousness. So here they go. Shrimvantam sakata Krishna punya shravana kirtanam ridyantaksto yabhadrani vidunoti suritsatam nashtaprayashu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatyuttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki tada rajastamo bhava kamalo badayaschaye cheta etaranavidham stitam sattve prasidati evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogata bhagavad tattva vijnana mukta sangasya jayate. Excuse me. Vidyante. I'm sorry. Mayapur, India. Vidyate hridaya grantischidyante sarva samshaya kshiyante chasya karmani drishta evat manishware. Here's the translation. This is dense. I mean, we could do a whole seminar on this. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures is itself, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita is itself righteous activity. And for one who, that's why, like, you could make the link. You know how Prabhupada said, even about the book distribution, even if the book goes in one's hand, he will be benefited. Remember that passage? Golokananda Priya, Nirantar Prabhu made a song about it. No, Nirantar Prabhu from LA? Books, Srila Prabhupada's books in every town and village all across the world. If you really want to please him, just distribute his books. Srila Prabhupada's books. Remember that song? This was like he did this in like 1990s, and at the beginning of that song there was an excerpt from a lecture that Prabhupada gave. I forgot where, probably Los Angeles. And he says, that, like, even just put the book in their hand. Even if the book goes in one's hand, he'll be benefited. He will see, oh, okay, let me see. They have taken so much time. Let me see what is there. Even if he reads one word, one line, one word, he'll be benefited. It is such a nice thing. Therefore, we are distributing. Therefore, we are what? Therefore, we are saying so much. We're emphasizing so much. Please distribute books. I mean, that whole passage is in my. I used to listen to that all the time. But coming back to this purport, it's relevant. Like, not this purport. Sorry, this actual Bhagavatam verse, right? It says that just touching the Vedic literatures or hearing in, right, is righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engage in hearing of him. Which two verses from the Bhagavad Gita chapter 10 does this make us think of?
10.10.
For an extra Ladu from Tirupati, please give us the translation, Vignesh.
I will open that.
Tick, tock, tick, tock. Sorry, your time is up. Excuse me, your time is up. You have unfortunately ran out of time, Vignesh, but we do give you the lollipop prasadam as a
Thank you.
consolation prize. Now, Golokananda Priya, for winning the entire Mahaprasad plate from Prabhupada Samadhi, please, can you give us the translation to 1010?
10. No, I have to look us.
Okay, then, Vignesh, please give it to us.
To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me.
Boom. And then also 1011. I think Prabhupada kind of refers to both of them here.
Yeah. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy within the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance.
Right? So he purifies that purification from inside. Right? In this way, the Bhagavatam continues, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more and more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, right? So there's this notion of nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. So nityam means every day. So every day, you got to press play on that iPhone and listen to Prabhupada or listen to your favorite guru or your favorite, or the audiobook, or you just got to press play on that player every day, or sit down and listen to the Bhagavatam live, listen to Bir Krishnamar give another wonderful Bhagavatam class, or, listen to what you gotta hear every day. You gotta press nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, right? As he hears more and more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. See, like, it's really, if you want to be fixed in bhakti yoga, you got to do that morning program diligently. Even if you're living at home, you got to somehow either stream it or do it, one-man show with your own deities, or, play pre-recorded Mangal Artiks, listen to the live Bhagavatam class from whatever, from Chaupati or Juhu or Mayapur, or go in a room without any distractions and read the Bhagavatam. However you cut the cake, you got to come in contact with Shravanam Kirtanam every day. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Otherwise that I'm speaking to myself here. Otherwise, that being fixed in the devotional service, that'll just never happen. That just never happens. And what's the effect? Like, this is what's really cool about this verse, is that it actually tells us, it makes a claim about the effect of hearing Bhagavatam. Like, I'm doing this podcast every day, or almost, and the very introduction, I mention that, we're reading these two great classics, the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam, because these very texts make this extraordinary claim that if we just listen to them, then some revolution in consciousness takes place. That verse from the Bhagavatam, right? The first canto, like, these literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are a different creation meant to bring about a revolution in the heart of the misdirected civilization. So there's all these claims. It makes a revolution in consciousness. It purifies consciousness. And here's the claim. What does it do? By hearing about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, when he becomes fixed, okay, so boom, you become fixed in service, but that's kind of abstract for a non-devotee. But listen to this though. By development of devotional service, which comes from, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance. And thus material lusts and avarice are diminished. And what happens when you have less tamaguna and rajagun? What's the effect? What's the effect of the increase of sattva-guna? What to speak of Shuddha Sattva? But what happens, according to the Gita, when the gates of the body become illumined by sattva guna, what's the result? On the material platform, what to speak of, anandam buddhi vardhanam, like with transcendental knowledge and transcendental ananda, but just on the material three modes of guna, the three modes of nature paradigm, what happens when you're more in the mode of goodness?
You're more peaceful.
Yeah, you're more peaceful and you're more
You're receptive to spiritual life.
you're more receptive to spiritual life. You're also more happy, I think. That thing is there, right? More happy
Yeah.
and more content, more satisfied, right? And thus material lusts and avarice are diminished. I mean, this lust is such an enemy to us. It's such an enemy. And it's so deluding. We think, oh, if I just satisfy that lust, I'll be happy. And boom, mode of passion, happiness in the mode of passion, nectar at first and suffering at the end, like every time, But Maya and the modes of nature, just like, under the influence of the modes, we believe the lie that Maya dangles in front of us. It's amazing. So, when these impurities are wiped away, the Bhagavatam continues its full description of the process. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady. Again, the notion of steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. What's the difference between sattva and shuddha sattva? What's the difference between goodness and pure goodness?
Sattva means like on a material platform, a material level of goodness. Like people normally we see philanthropy and all those acts come under this material goodness. But when we connect that with service to Krishna, connect with Krishna on and do all activities and according to that consciousness, then it is Shuddha Sattva.
Very good. Do you want to add anything, Golokananda Priya?
Yeah, like they said, when you're in the mode of goodness, it's still considered like on the material. But if you come to Shuddha Sattva, that means you transcend the mode of goodness also.
Very
You
good.
become like, you become enlightened, if the devotional service, you become more, enlivened, like it's
enlivened. Let me add something that I find very interesting that Hridayananda Maharaj once said. He makes this, I think, a brilliant point. That is that even though, what we just heard correctly from Golokananda Priya, from Vignesh, that, material goodness is precisely material, and whereas, pure goodness is beyond, it's transcendental. Having said that, though, there's really not that much difference in terms of what pure goodness looks like compared to, goodness. It's not like it's a drastic change from, let's say, deep tamaguna and all of a sudden, it's transcendence. And there's it's actually very close, right? So like you can imagine the spectrum of material goodness, but, like 99, percent Shuddha Sattva with still just 1% left in material goodness. They look very similar. And I think that he made this point in the context again of, adjusting or making the point that we don't necessarily need in our preaching, in our presentation of Krishna consciousness, to make extraordinary, extravagant presentations or behaviors or dressing or external culture drastically different from a local culture. All you really need to do is find the pure sattvic elements in any given culture. And those pure sattvic elements, even though they may be German or they may be Mauritian or they may be, from Tamil Nadu, are actually very close to transcendence, And so I find that really fascinating that there's, contrary to a lot of us who believe that, the distinction, the contrast between the spiritual world and the material world is, completely different, like inconceivably different, like night and day, water and oil, they're complete opposites. Not really, technically speaking, they can theoretically they look almost very much similar, I find that very inspiring, very interesting. Okay, so let me continue. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Thus, this is a great point, thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of asamshayam samangram, understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth, personality of Godhead. And so Prabhupada finishes by saying, therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. So do you, Prabhu, see how important it is to hear daily?
Yeah.
It's so important. Let's take a 5-minute break or a 6.5-minute break. We can convene at 8:30 for us here in India and at whatever 0.00 it'll be for you, Lokananda Priya. How's the weather in North Carolina right now?
I'm in Philadelphia. There was snow
Right,
yesterday.
I'm sorry you moved to Philly. I apologize. There was snow yesterday.
There
Huh?
was snow. Yeah. It was warm a little bit warmer. Then suddenly
There was
there
some
was
snow.
cold.
It was kind of
Yeah,
warm.
it was snowing yesterday. Yeah, it was like pouring like ice drop.
Vignesh, I don't think we should complain too much about the heat here in India. Although it is rough, Lokananda Priya. I mean, even now here in Mayapur, it's already starting to be like the humidity factor, and oh my God, it's really tough.
The average temperature of India is almost like around 30 degrees Celsius. It maybe 20, 25, 30. That's it.
How is it really humid in Madras? You're in Chennai, right, Vignesh?
I'm in Bangalore.
You're in Bangalore. It's pretty dry there. The weather is okay, or is it also very hot?
It is comparatively better to my earlier experience in Mumbai. It's much better.
Better than Bombay?
Much better than Bombay.
Less hot?
Much better. It's less hot. Yeah, a lot of humidity is quite less. And it's much more cooler.
Wow. Yeah. Lucky you. Okay, let's meet in 5 minutes. I'll pause. Huh?
Philadelphia, we're 28 degrees.
What?
In Philadelphia, we're 28 degrees.
Oh, and that's not Celsius, dear. That's Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that in Celsius?
32 difference, 32 degree, something.
What is it in Celsius?
And there should be some difference of 32 degrees something.
Yeah, so it's like around 0, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's basically freezing.
Yeah, under 0.
It's sub-freezing.
Yeah.
In Bangalore, it is 26 Celsius.
Yeah, the average in India, you're saying?
Right now, it is 26 in Bangalore. 26.
Yeah, well, that's, I guess that's what we get for having rejected Krishna. We have to deal with this. Audi, what is it?
Yeah, you used to after staying for so long.
What's the threefold miseries?
Just deal with it.
Yeah, Adhyatmika, Adhibhautika, Adhidevika. This is Adhidevika Klesha. Yeah. All right, let's meet.
I was just wondering if there is a snowfall in the Vrindavan, Golok Vrindavan.
There must be, otherwise, like, how could it be? How could it be the source of everything and not be? I'm sure for.
I never heard of it because right now, technically, in Indian Vrindavan, Bhuma Vrindavan, there is no snowfall. I was wondering if there is any snowfall in the Devya Vrindavan.
For the sake of Leela, there must be. Like today, we were having lunch, and one devotee said, "Look, if there's no pizza in Goloka Vrindavan, I want my money back." All right, let's meet in 5 minutes. Recording paused again. We had all these really nice. Because of Vignesh and Golokananda Priya, they did not remind us to continue the recording, and therefore, whoever's watching this, probably nobody. It's going to be in the archives of the Audarya Center for Bhagavad Studies, and with like 6 views in 2079. But anyway, We're recording once again. We're rolling. Go ahead.
Text number 5. Aparayam itastu anyam prakritim vidhi me param jivabhutam mahabhavo issa idam dharyate jagat. Besides this inferior nature, O mighty Arjuna, there is a superior energy of mind, which are all living entities who are struggling with material nature and are sustaining the universe. Purport. Here it is clearly mentioned that living entities belong to the superior nature of the Supreme Lord. The inferior energies matter manifested in different elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Both forms of material nature, namely gross, earth, etc., and subtle, mind, etc., are products of the inferior energy. The living entities who are exploiting these inferior energies for different purposes are the superior energy of the Supreme Lord. And it is due to this energy that the entire material world functions. The cosmic manifestation has no power to act unless it is moved by the superior energy, the living entity. Energies are always controlled by the energetic, and therefore living entities are always controlled by the Lord. They have no independent existence. They are never equally powerful as unintelligent men think. The distinction between the living entities and the Lord is described in Srimad Bhagavatam as follows in point
Aparita
87.30.
Vastanu Yadi Sarvagatas Tarhina Shushititi Niyamo Dhruva Nitarata Ajanichayanamayam Tad Anuvimchutyantir Bhavit Samam Anujanatam Yad Amatam Mahadushtata. Sorry, because I remember the meter from Dravida Prabhu. He did a Bhagavad Gita audiobook with purports, and he's really good at reciting. So I couldn't resist reciting it how I heard it from him. Sorry, go ahead.
O Supreme Eternal, if the embodied living entities were eternal and all-pervading like you, then they would not be under your control. But if the living entities are accepted as minute energies of your Lordship, then they are at once subject to your supreme control. Therefore, real liberation entails surrender by the living entities to your control, and that surrender will make them happy.
Wow. So I mean, can you like that's mukti? That's a Vaishnava's conception of mukti. How different is that from Advaita Vedanta? Can you repeat what is real liberation?
Real liberation entails surrender by the living entities to your control.
Amazing,
and that surrender makes them happy.
Yeah. It's totally opposite to the idea of, aham brahmasmi, or tattvam masi, right?
I think they understand the meaning quite differently. Actually, like Tattvamasi is very much like a very personal interpretation can be given for that.
Oh, because we're Brahman. No, but generally, it's very much of an Advaita Vedanta aphorism,
I was
isn't it?
reading other day, like Tattvamasi, they say ki tasya, you belong to Krishna. Like Tattvamasi, like tasya, you belong to him.
But
so it's like
that aphorism is mostly used by Advaita Vedanta. I mean, that's nice. That's a beautiful interpretation, but that's not the most commonly accepted, right? I mean, you take 1,000 times the aphorism Tattvamasi is mentioned in India, and the majority, I would claim, is with the Advaita Vedanta interpretation, isn't it? Yeah. It's a great interpretation. It's just like, the Ramanujacharya who understood the proper interpretation about, how Narayan like has lotus eyes with red inside as opposed to, eyes looking like the butt of a baboon monkey. So, I mean, your interpretation is perfect. Unfortunately, historically speaking, I think, unfortunately, it's been interpreted the other way. Yeah. So please go on.
in that constitutional position, only can they be controllers. Therefore, men with limited knowledge who advocate the monistic theory that God and the living entities are equal in all respects are actually misleading themselves and others.
So what does Prabhupada mean when he says that? Or sorry, it's not Prabhupada, it's whoever's speaking this 10th canto, chapter 87 verse. That only in the constitutional position, right, of being surrendered to Krishna, can they be controllers. Is that contradictory? Or how do we reconcile that? In the constitutional position of being eternal servants, only then can they be controllers. What does that mean?
Maybe we can control Krishna.
Mm,
Like Mother
that's
Yashoda
a good
did.
one. That's a real Rasika interpretation. What's another?
Like Krishna says, na, bhaktya vashya aham, somewhere in Bhagavatam, bhakto vashyata aham, something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I come under the control of Krishna,
Beautiful.
devotees.
But let's be a little less Rasika and speak
His
maybe.
constitutional position, they said, because we are just like Krishna in minute.
How can they be controllers though?
Krishna is the supreme controller, so
So Krishna gives individual souls empowerment, right?
yeah, to control him.
The whole notion of yukta vairagya, the whole notion of, for example, Brahma being, he's a controller. He's definitely a controller, but when he's a pure devotee, he's exercising his control of, the whole cosmos in the service of the Lord. A kshatriya, a raja rishi, has powers of control over his citizens, and he controls his citizens, but he's doing it in his constitutional position as a servant of the Supreme Lord, right? Please continue.
The
The
Supreme Lord
Supreme,
Krishna.
yeah.
Okay, it's my turn, isn't it?
It's your turn.
I think the paragraph ended. Yeah.
Oh,
You want to
wants to read one chapter.
you want to read it?
Yeah, you can continue, Mataji. You can continue.
Okay, the Supreme Lord Krishna is the only controller, and all living entities are controlled by him. The living entities are his superior energy because the quality of the existence is one and the same with the Supreme, but they are never equal to the Lord in quantity or power.
Jai.
I think that answer our question. Controller.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I just moved to the other page. Okay. This forgetfulness is, is 7.5, isn't it?
While exploiting, I think there's a sentence.
By exploiting the gross and subtle inferior energy matter, the superior energy, the living entity, forgets his real spiritual mind and intelligence. This forgetfulness is due to the influence of matter upon the living entity. But when the living entity becomes free from influence of illusory material energy, he attains a stage called mukti or liberation. The false ego, under the influence of material illusion, think, I am matter, and material acquisition or mind. His actual position is realized when he is liberated from all material ideas, including the conception of his becoming one in all respect with God.
Hmm.
Therefore, one may conclude that the Gita confirms the living entity to be only one of the multi energies of Krishna. And when this energy is freed from material contamination, it becomes fully Krishna conscious or liberated.
Jai. Okay, I wanted to read the, there's nothing superior to me, or I am this, but we don't have time, and I really do want to hit 7:14 and 7:19. So let's go. Let's fast forward to 7:14. Okay, assuming that we fully have accepted that Krishna is all the verses that he says until 14. That he's the source of everything, including all these identity verses. That I am the strength of the strong, sex, which is not contrary to religious principles, etc. And how he's, independent of the three modes of nature, which leads us to 7:14. Because, in 7:12 and 13, he talks about these gunas, but he says, I'm not under the modes of this material nature. That's in 12. And then again in 13, deluded by the three modes. Again, the whole world does not know me who am above the modes. Excuse me. And so finally, now in 14, super famous, Daivye Shaguna Mai Mama Maya Duratyaya Mamevaye Prapadyante Maya Mitam Tarantite. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is very difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has innumerable energies, and all these energies are divine, right? Even matter. Although the living entities are part of his energies and are therefore divine, due to contact with material energy, their original superior power is covered. Being thus covered by material energy, one cannot possibly overcome its influence. Excuse me. As previously stated, both the material and spiritual natures, being emanations from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are eternal. The living entities belong to the eternal superior nature of the Lord, but due to contamination by the inferior nature, matter, their illusion is also eternal. So here we're talking about anadi, right? It's eternal, but not literally. Like, at least, I'm one of those devotees who believe that the soul comes from Goloka Vrindavan. So this illusion being eternal is explained by our acharyas. Anadi means it's so long, it's been so long that it's almost like it's, just since time immemorial. But because it's been so long, not literally. The conditioned soul is therefore called Nitya Bada, or eternally conditioned. You see, no one can trace out the history of his becoming conditioned, but that implies that he has become conditioned, you see? No one can trace out the history. The history is so long in the past of his becoming conditioned at a certain date in material history. But that very sentence, you see, implies that there was a certain date in material history. It's just so long ago that it's just can't even consider how long it's been. Consequently, his release from the clutches of material nature is very difficult. Wow. Even though that material energy or nature is an inferior energy, because material energy is ultimately conducted by the supreme will, which the living entity cannot overcome. Right? So it's amazing. It's like our release is so difficult because we are so like every life. Can you imagine every lifetime that we've been in the material world, we've tried to gratify our senses to the max. That's been our modus operandi for practically eternity. In how many lifetimes? Right? How many lifetimes? And each time the goal is, where's the sex? Where's the food? Where's the mate? Where's the defending? Where's the accumulation of power? Where's the accumulation of money, etc., etc. Every single lifetime. And all of a sudden, now we're in a human form, and somehow we got Lord Chaitanya's little drop of mercy, and we're like, actually, we're not supposed to to engage in sense gratification, but we're so conditioned to it. Like we've been doing it for so many lifetimes that it's the analogy is given. You're driving on a freeway, and then all of a sudden, it's like impossible to put yourself in reverse, or to get off the freeway and do a 180-degree. Your car's just gonna flip. So we want to be totally strict, but at the same time, we have to just kind of almost be. I'm not going to be my impersonalist here, but in a way, we have to almost like be understanding of our own conditioning and realize, oh my God, like we've been doing this wrong for a long time, Consequently, his release from the clutches of material nature is very difficult, even though that material nature is an inferior energy. We read that. Inferior material nature is therefore defined herein as divine nature due to its divine connection and movement by the divine will. Very important point. We are not impersonalists. We don't say Jagat Mithya, right? We say Jagat, Satyam, but it's just temporary. That's the problem. But we do not reject matter as being ontologically illusory or false. No. And therefore we do Yukta Vairagya. You see, and therefore not to do Yukta Vairagya is actually Mayavadi. It's actually impersonalism. So in a way, anyway, I don't want to bring it to the dress code, but I'll just say it once. Therefore, in a way, not completely, but in a way, devotees in the West, of course, it's their personal choice. They may be, that's why I said in a way. Okay, it's just in a one way. In a way, it could be argued that devotees in the West refusing to Grihastha preachers in the West refusing to present themselves in Western clothes, in a way, in a small way, I'll say it 500 times, could be seen as some sort of tinge of impersonalism. Because why would you not do what works much better and which is totally, justified in our scriptures, as opposed to rejecting material Western culture as being illusory when actually it's not. It's to be engaged in Krishna's service. You see? So It acts so wonderfully in the construction and destruction of the cosmic manifestation. The Vedas confirm this. Mayam tu prakritim vidyan mayinam tu maheshwaram. Quote, although Maya is false or temporary, the background of Maya is the supreme magician, the personality of Godhead, who is Maheshwara, the supreme controller. So here then Prabhupada talks about, guna and how, I got to read this. I'll just read this one paragraph and then we'll go to 19. Okay, because we got only 7 minutes left, or 8. Another meaning of guna is rope. It is to be understood that the conditioned soul is tightly tied by the ropes of illusion. I love this sentence. A man bound by the hands and feet cannot free himself. He must be helped by a person who is unbound. Beautiful, huh? Because the bound cannot help the bound, the rescuer must be liberated. Therefore, only Lord Krishna or his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, or masters, plural, can release the conditioned soul. Without such superior help, one cannot be freed from the bondage of material nature. Devotional service or Krishna consciousness can help one gain such release. Krishna, being the Lord of illusory energy, this is how it functions, right? He's the Lord of the illusory energy, so he can order this insurmountable energy to release. He's like, okay, you know what, Maya? Just like, cool, chill out. Like, this guy is, he's off the hook, okay? Leave him alone, right? But he does that in reciprocation, right? He orders this release out of his causeless mercy on the surrendered soul. So he surrenders. So the soul is doing something. Krishna is reciprocating in kind. This is a point that, again, Rida Nanmarsh raises, which I think is very interesting and important to remember. We say causeless mercy. What it basically means is that Krishna is, again, like slashing the prices, but he is reciprocating. We cannot forget that Krishna reciprocates. The verse cannot be, obliterated from the horizon. But the only thing is, like, you take one step towards Krishna, he takes 5 billion steps towards you. But he's still reciprocating with that one step. So here, it's the same thing is repeated. But the Lord orders this release out of his causeless mercy on the surrendered soul, and out of his paternal affection for the living entity who is originally a beloved son of the Lord. Therefore, surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord is the only means to get free from the clutches of the stringent material natures. And therefore, what is the verse that Prabhupada quoted the most of the Bhagavad Gita? Actually, of all the Vedic literatures, what's the one verse that Prabhupada quoted the most?
Sarva Dharma.
You got it.
Sarvadhamma parijajamamekam saranam prajam tam sarva papebhyam muksai samimasucha.
You got it. Vignesh, let us finish with verse 19.
Yeah. Text number 19. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. Translation. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all the causes, and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Purport. The living entity, while executing devotional service or transcendental rituals after many, many births, can actually become situated in transcendental pure knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization.
May.
In the beginning,
you see the word may.
may. Is that a may?
Yeah, like the living entity may
Maybe
actually become. So it's not will or must, but may, which opens what you mentioned, like it's possibility, but the free will still being always a factor. May.
Yeah. In the beginning of spiritual realization, while one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there is some leaning towards impersonalism.
You see?
But when one is further advanced, he can understand that there are activities in the spiritual life and that these activities constitute devotional service. Realizing this, he becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrenders to him. At such a time, one can understand that Lord Sri Krishna's mercy is everything, that he is the cause of all the causes, and that this material manifestation is not independent from him.
Hmm.
He realizes the material world to be perverted reflection of spiritual variegatedness and realizes that in everything there is a relationship with Supreme Lord Krishna. Thus he thinks of everything in relation to Vasudeva or Sri Krishna. Such a universal vision of Vasudeva precipitates one's full surrender to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna as the highest goal. Such surrendered great souls are very rare.
Hmm.
This verse is very nicely explained in the third chapter of Svetasvatara Upanishad. In this body, there are powers of speaking, of seeing, of hearing, of mental activities, etc. But these are not important if not related to the Supreme Lord. And because Vasudeva is all pervading and everything is Vasudeva, the devotee surrenders in full knowledge.
Hmm. So we're lucky, Prabhus. Somehow, you know, somehow we're we may not claim that we're pure devotees, okay, but we can definitely claim that we're trying to surrender to Krishna, right? We have at least theoretical accepted. We have accepted at least theoretically, and that that manifests in intangible activities like us following the four regulative principles, like us chanting 16 rounds a day, like us waking up early in the morning. I mean, these are real things. These are real things that we in spite of our whatever, not whatever, but in spite of our impurity and lack of advancement in Krishna consciousness or speed in Krishna consciousness, etc., the fact is that we're doing these things. We are trying to follow the four regs. We are chanting 16 rounds or trying to, all that is actual surrender, right?
Yeah.
And we're lucky. We're lucky that we've accepted Krishna as all in all. What are you gonna say?
Yeah.
Very true.
Very true.
Yeah. Jai, so let us continue on the path and let us not deviate. And if we can, if Krishna allows, let us try to help other souls also, as much as possible. Because that itself will also keep us, in the fire, right? That'll keep us fired up.
Yeah.
All right, let me just chant. I mean, I'll just lead for 30 seconds and then Vignesh and I will go to bed.
Chandra, I'm asking you, how are you so fluent in both English and French together?
Oh, you want me to tell you about my boring conditional life? I was born in LA, but my father was French, and so I spent my first 9 years in Paris. So, going to a French school, learning French as my mother tongue, but speaking with my mom in English. She always spoke to me in English. I mean, not always, but she regularly spoke to me in English. And then I moved back to America when I was 9. And, at 9, you can still learn languages quite well. And from 9 to 18, basically, I was in America. I was in the American school system, watching American TV and speaking to American kids, and then that all that got more solidified when I went to college, and then when I joined the ashram in LA. So that is the answer. That is the fabulous, interesting answer, Mataji.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. You're very good. You're both very fluent in both language, English and French.
Yeah, and I'm still a lusty dog, so what's the use? All right, I'll meet you guys. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Jai Prabhus, I wish you a great week, and I look forward to be together in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu.
Jai Prabhus.
Good night. Hare Krishna.
Good night and have a good day. Vivekananda Priya.
You're going to be in India in 2 weeks?
I'll still be in India, yeah, Krishna willing, yeah.
So we're still having the same time.
That would be great, so I don't have to go to sleep at 10:30, yeah.
That is better.
Okay.
Thank you. Haribo.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.